It was October 21st in the year 1805. In one of the most decisive naval battles in history, a British fleet under Admiral Lord Nelson defeats a combined French and Spanish fleet at the Battle of Trafalgar, fought off the coast of Spain. At sea, Lord Nelson and the Royal Navy consistently thwarted Napoleon Bonaparte, who led France to preeminence on the European mainland. Nelson's last and greatest victory against the French was the Battle of Trafalgar, which began after Nelson caught sight of a Franco-Spanish force of 33 ships. Preparing to engage the enemy force on October 21st, Nelson divided his 27 ships into two divisions and signaled a famous message from the flagship Victory. Quote, "England expects that every man will do his duty," unquote. In 5 hours of fighting, the British devastated the enemy fleet, destroying 19 enemy ships. No British ships were lost, but 1,500 British seamen either continued their eternity or were wounded in heavy fighting. The battle raged at its fiercest around the Victory, and a French sniper shot Nelson in the shoulder and chest. The admiral was taken below and continued his eternity about 30 minutes before the end of the battle. Nelson's last words, after being informed that victory was imminent, were, quote, "Now I am satisfied. Thank God I have done my duty," unquote. Victory at the Battle of Trafalgar ensured that Napoleon would never invade Britain. Nelson, hailed as the savior of his nation, was given a magnificent funeral in St. Paul's Cathedral in London. A column was erected to his memory in the newly named Trafalgar Square, and numerous streets were renamed in his honor. On October 21st in the year 1959, on New York City's Fifth Avenue, thousands of people line up outside a bizarrely shaped white concrete building that resembled a giant upside-down cupcake. It was opening day at the new Guggenheim Museum, home to one of the world's top collections of contemporary art. Mining tycoon Solomon R. Guggenheim began collecting art seriously when he retired in the 1930s. With the help of Hilla Ribet, a German baroness and artist, Guggenheim displayed his purchases for the first time in 1939 in a former car showroom in New York. Within a few years, the collection, including works by Vasily Kandinsky, Paul Klee, and Marc Chagall, had outgrown the small space. In 1943, Ribet contacted architect Frank Lloyd Wright and asked him to take on the work of designing not just a museum, but a temple of spirit, where people would learn to see art in a new way. Over the next 16 years, until its continuance of eternity 6 months before the museum opened, Wright worked to bring his unique vision to life. To Wright's fans, the museum that opened on October 21st in 1959 was a work of art in itself. Inside, a long ramp spiraled upwards for a total of a quarter mile around a large central rotunda, topped by a domed glass ceiling. Reflecting Wright's love of nature, the 50,000-meter space resembled a giant seashell, with each room opening fluidly into the next. Wright's groundbreaking design drew criticism as well as admiration. Some felt the oddly shaped building didn't complement the artwork. They complained the museum was less about art and more about Frank Lloyd Wright. On the flip side, many others thought the architect had achieved his goal, a museum where building and art work together to create an uninterrupted and beautiful symphony. Located on New York's impressive Museum Mile, at the edge of Central Park, the Guggenheim has become one of the city's most popular attractions. In 1993, the original building was renovated and expanded to create even more exhibition space. Today, Wright's creation continues to inspire awe, as well as odd comparisons. A Jell-O mold, a washing machine, a pile of twisted ribbon are a few of the comparisons noted for many of the 900,000 plus visitors who visit the Guggenheim each year. On October 21st in the year 1967 in Washington, D.C., nearly 100,000 people gathered to protest the American war effort in Vietnam. More than 50,000 of the protesters marched to the Pentagon to ask for an end to the conflict. The protest was the most dramatic sign of waning U.S. support for President Lyndon B. Johnson's war in Vietnam. Polls taken in the summer of 1967 revealed that, for the first time, American support for the war had fallen below 50%. When the Johnson administration announced that it would ask for a 10% increase in taxes to fund the war, the public's skepticism increased. The peace movement began to push harder for an end to the war. The March on Washington was the most powerful sign of their commitment to this cause. The Johnson administration responded by launching a vigorous propaganda campaign to restore public confidence in its handling of the war. The president even went so far as to call General William Westmoreland, commander of U.S. forces in Vietnam, back to the United States to address Congress and the public. The effort was somewhat successful in tempering criticisms of the war. However, the Tet Offensive of early 1968 destroyed much of the Johnson administration's credibility concerning the Vietnam War. The protest was also important in suggesting that the domestic Cold War consensus was beginning to fracture. Many of the protesters on these days, they weren't just questioning America's conduct in Vietnam. They were questioning the very basis of the nation's Cold War foreign policy. Historic information divulged and documented on the Gazette file